All right. How do you look at yourself? Oh, oh, oh. All right. How do we look at ourselves? How should we look at ourselves? You don't need to go in the mirror for that, to take a look. How do you feel about yourself? How should you feel about yourself? Good question. Get some answers. I had a very interesting TRC um, yesterday. That's right. I enjoyed it. Okay. Welcome to Tanya today. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichri Kadesh in Montreal, Canada, where it's pretty cold, but we weather the weather. And we weather it pretty well here, staying indoors. We welcome Hayden from Amsterdam. Welcome. All right, beautiful. And from Germany, Michael, as always, is with us. We welcome John. Good morning in North Carolina, as always. Jackie is with us in Charlotte, North Carolina. Boker Tov. Miriam is in London, England. Welcome. Boker Tov in New York to Serach. Simcha is in Florida with us. Luz is with us. And you have to remind me, I forgot to where. Art is in Michigan. Eugenia is in freezing Calgary. Here it's pretty cold too, and it's going to get colder. Leah, good morning to you in Florida. Who else is joining us? Tamar in Jerusalem. Okay, beautiful. Thank you for joining. Rachamim is in Houston, Texas. Welcome. Okay. That means compassion. He's the embodiment of compassion. Moshe is with us in Fullerton, California. Welcome. Usually you're not there. Usually in Arizona, right? I recall. Who else is with us? Omak is in California. Rabab is in Morocco. Daphne is having a fabulous Friday in South Carolina, of course. What else would you have there? Jane is with us in the Philippines. AC, good morning. Liba and Davida, good morning. In New York, we have in La Jolla, California, Parker. And Diane is in Arizona. Welcome. Lynn in Long Island has joined us. Tim and Boker Tov to you in Texas. Lana is in, not certain, but wherever it is. Thank you for joining. Sam is in. Shmuley in Baltimore. Beautiful. David in Gold River, California. Who else is here with us? Alice is in uh, Baltimore. Rena in Colorado. And who else? We've got Clubhousers, Batya, Vilma, Michael, Marcy, Celeste, David, Lebanon. We have Instagrammers with us. Bella, Rachel from South Carolina. Bella, I forgot where you're from, to remind me. Antmix97 from Philadelphia. Antitelabenta, New York. Sarah from Montreal. All right. Who else is here? Okay. When you walk into a room with people, how do you see yourself vis-a-vis other people? Do you feel lesser than them? Or greater than them? Or let's say even equal to them? Lesser than them, perhaps because we're might be suffering of some uh, lack of self-worth. So we might feel lesser, perhaps. Greater than them because maybe we are, shall we say, a little foolhardy and full of ourselves and a bit arrogant. And to be equal, well, that sounds reasonable. To see yourself equal to another, that would sound maybe the healthiest. Today we're going to learn that to regain the vibrancy of life, the heart's devotion and love and desire to be connected to the divine, when that isn't fully activated, we need to uh, subdue ourselves, or that the negativity that's covering over on the inner truth. And sometimes that negativity is actually what I just mentioned, that we feel lesser than, or greater than, or perhaps even equal to. That's not allowing me to touch a deeper place within myself, because I am covered over on the surface by the animal soul's desire to feel good about ourselves. And to feel good about ourselves is we're always instinctually judging us versus another. I might say, well, don't make any judgment at all. You know, why not just look inside of you? Why do you have to make a judgment of yourself vis-a-vis anybody else? That's true. However, in the context of our discussion today, in order to humble that part in me that's not allowing me to express my true divine soul's desire to connect to God, to be completely vibrant and, and full of joy through my daily routine of whatever is thrown my way. So we need to uh, crush that arrogant spirit that's not allowing for me to truly reveal my divine soul. So the Alter Rebbe is now going to introduce to us another way that we can humble our negativity, that animal soul, the Sitter Achar, the other side. Quoting from the sages in Pirkei Avos, in the Ethics of Our Fathers, that says, "V'havishval ruach b'fnei kol adam," that you should be lowly of spirit before every person. Ooh. So there are commentators that explain, well, if you're so great, how you can be lowly of spirit before everybody? What does that mean? So to like make yourself as if you're like that, right? Says the Alter Rebbe, no. It means literally. Don't make yourself as if you are lower of spirit in order to humble yourself, right? You're only doing it for the sake of humility, not because you really are lower than somebody else or everybody rather. The Alter Rebbe says, no. You actually, this statement of our sages is to be, not merely act that way, but in all sincerity to feel that you are lower than everybody else. And not coming because you're lacking self-esteem. On the contrary, it's only because you have a really great sense of self-worth of who you are that you can actually fulfill this, which we'll get back to. But right now, let's understand, how does that work exactly? How do you get to such a place that you're going to feel that you are lesser? Imagine, you're a very learned individual of Torah, a great, very observant of Torah and mitzvahs. How are you supposed to look at another person who is not so observant, not learned? So that's why some commentators say, as if you are lesser than them. But the other says, no, you are lesser than them. How could you be lesser than them if you're doing so much in life than other people? You're doing so much good, more than the average bear. Excuse that. Right? So what does that mean? It sounds very counterintuitive. So the Alter Rebbe explains. By another teachings, also from Pirkei Avos, also from the Ethics of Our Fathers, that says, Al tadin es chavercha ad shetigil kaimei. Don't judge a fellow person until you've stood in their place. Until you stood in their place. So the Alter Rebbe takes this very literally. Their place. Because it's their place that made them sin. Their place that made them sin. What does that mean? Since their livelihood requires them to be in the marketplace all day, he's giving an example, back in the day the way it was, right? So therefore, we're talking about someone who's sitting on the street corners, selling his wares. His eyes sees all sorts of temptation. And what the eye see, the heart desires. So that's his place. Physical place. Look where he's making a livelihood. Well, if your eyes are out there and, imagine okay, not in Montreal today with cold weather, but if you are in Florida with warm weather or any other place with warm weather and the wares are being sold outside and that's what you sit a whole day selling your goods and you have people walking around, not exactly modest. Your eye sees, your heart desires. Additionally, says the Alter Rebbe, that place doesn't mean just physical place, it also means spiritual place. Right? Who's this person that we're talking about? This Kal Shebekalim, this simpleton, who is far removed from the Beinoni in his level of divine service. And yet, he has to be Shval Ruach, he has to be humble before him. So he's explaining now how. Because not only his physical place, but his spiritual place, meaning the nature of this person, the evil impulse that they have. In other words, this person, as we all know, some people, they are, like you just say one word that's a little off for them, their temper, rage. Right? They rage against you. And as the metaphor the Alter Rebbe gives, the evil nature burns like a baker's fiery oven. It burns like a flaming fire. So his nature is, as we know, as I'm a father of Kenai Harlem, of 10 kids, thank God. And I see the different nature of the kids. Some are much more easygoing, some are not. Some are much more, you say something and they get easily offended. And, we all know that. We get that. So that's that person who is, not exactly a holy roller. Different, however, is the Beinoni who goes about little in the marketplace. He's in his home or, not in the street corner. So he's not physically there in a place of temptation. And even if he goes to the marketplace, whatever time that he's there, minimally, he doesn't have a evil inclination that's a fiery furnace that erupts very easily. Doesn't have that passionate nature that can be so easily tempted. And as we know, the evil inclination, the evil impulse in one person is different than another person. Now, the truth is, says the Alter Rebbe, that person who's sitting in the street corner and is tempted by what he sees and has a very fiery nature that is kind of erupts, that's not an excuse for their sins. That person could be a Rasha Gomer or a complete evildoer because, hey, we all have to know that God is before us and therefore we're careful what our eyes see. He should control himself and restrain from the feelings of the desire that his heart wants because of the fear of God, that God sees everything that we do. Fear of God means that God is present. Just as someone walks into the room, we act differently than when no one's in the room. But, so, true that person's responsible, but that's not the point here. Excuse me. Now that I want to make sure that we're not excusing the person for their behavior. That's not the point. The point is how I'm looking at that person, or how the Beinoni better is looking at that person. Right? So it's not an excuse for his behavior, but the point is what that person has to do who's sitting in the the outdoor marketplace day in, day out, seeing what he sees, who's got a temperament that's not exactly, he's got a very passionate kind of temperament, so he's easily aroused by the temptations that he would see in the outdoor market, right? I mean, this is all by way of example. Could be many different types, but we get the idea, I'm sure. Right? That person to hold in their and to deal with their struggle, to hold it in, deal with their struggle, whoa, do they ever have to exert themselves? Boy, do they have to work hard. So the Beinoni now has to ask himself, am I doing that on my end in the realm of doing good? He's doing it in the realm of not doing something sinful. He's got to do that, right? He's obliged, right? Responsible. Can't say, "Oh, that's my nature, so I gave it to my nature." Sorry. But the Beinoni now, vis-a-vis looking at that person, am I wringing out my soul in prayer, grinding and crushing it from within, that I'm so given over to my prayers, exerting myself, my spirit, in the way I need to? That's the question the Beinoni has. At the end, for the thought today. Pretty powerful. So, how do I look at another person? In this instance, that we are less than anybody and everybody. Even though we accomplished a lot more, we're much more refined. Maybe that's all my nature. Or maybe that's just because we're what I occupy myself with. I'm a rabbi, I teach, I'm not out there in a dog eat dog world, in a rat race. So maybe I'm more refined, maybe not. Let's say, maybe I'm more learned, and I do a lot more good maybe than some other people. But that's not the point. The point is, how much am I exerting myself compared to that person who has to exert themselves just to stay on the straight and narrow? How much am I exerting myself in my prayers compared to that person who has to exert themselves just not to allow the desires of the heart to overtake them? When we see it from that perspective, then indeed I could be lower than another, if not everybody. Well, more of this to come. Any questions? I don't see. All right. Yeah, every word of Tanya counts. Absolutely. David, you mentioned both someone with arrogance, but also someone with low self-esteem. Yes. Well, that's the idea. When you look at yourself vis-a-vis someone else, this is very deliberate. What we just spoke about here, very intentional. This kind of thinking. When we usually see another and we are instinctually feeling lesser or greater than, that is because it's instinctual. It's not deliberate. It's not highly intentional. This is highly intentional, a highly deliberate way to think. And that's unique what we're speaking about over here. So when we do see ourselves versus another person, um, and again, instinctually we feel lesser than, is because we have an inferiority complex, because we are um, feeling unworthy, and that's an issue that we need to deal with, to recognize, which we do that in TRC, of course, Tiny Rabbi Community. Yep. Uh, Davida, what happens when you compare ourselves to more observant and righteous Jews and we feel disappointed in ourselves? See, that's the work of the animal soul of the Yetzer Hara. And it's not about being disappointed in yourself, because that's going to bring you to a bad place. We're going to see more about this. We're going to learn more about this, so stay tuned. It's not about feeling guilty, disappointed. It's about when you feel lesser than, that you did not exert yourself the way the simpleton who is out in the street corner, right, exerts himself, or needs to at least exert himself. So that just gives me an impetus to crush the negativity from within. And that's the point over here. How are we supposed to think about them? So that's what we just spoke about. How are we supposed to judge us? How about if others have judged us in the past verbally? Okay, so what? So they've judged us. That's their problem. Or you don't take their judgment. I mean, take whatever you need to learn from it, but you're not depending on them. Bella, what if a person treats you badly? So they treat you badly. What's the point over here? In vis-a-vis we're talking about. They treat you badly, so you gotta whatever. Actually, we dealt with that yesterday in TRC. Yesterday's conversation. Oh, Sarah from Montreal. If you feel lower, do you still feel that you can help that person? Again, lower only when it's highly intentional. Highly intentional is when you think it through and meditate upon it, as we've learned here. If it's instinctually that you feel lower, that's coming from a bad place. It's coming from your lack of who you are and your self-worth. So that's not good. That's not healthy. This is highly intentional over here. You're thinking through that it's their place physically and spiritually that is affecting them, that they are where they're at, even though they're responsible to, not commit wrongdoings, but vis-a-vis how much they have to exert themselves, how much am I exerting myself? That's the question. And that's very much deliberate and intentional as opposed to instinctual. Usually when we feel lesser than somebody else, it's an instinctual thing coming from not a holy place, but from the animal soul. I hope that's clear, Sarah. On Shabbos, we can talk more about it. Okay? Because Sarah comes every Shabbos here to Chabad Zichre. Does it go back to kindness as being kind in our thoughts? No. No, that's not what we're talking about at all. No, it's not about being kind. We're talking about how you perceive another person, right? That's the point over here. All right? Any other questions? Thank you, Sarah. All right, folks. To be continued. We will continue our conversation. I'm Rabbi Ronnie Fine, coming to you from Chabad Zichri Kadeshim in Montreal, Canada. It's a privilege and a pleasure to share with you the Tanya. Have an amazing, wonderful day and a good Shabbos. Rambam, coming right up. Thank you.